Everybody got that one show they knew for a long time, but didn't give a chance until way later. There's a shit ton of anime to pick from and watch. Out of how many a person physically watched, they heard 3 times that amount. I heard of a lot of anime just by the name or a clip, but I never watched them myself, which I mean is a good thing, cause there's always gonna be something out there you never heard of that you'll probably like. But with how much shit you hear about, you end up passing over some really good shit, and then you end up backtracking. That's basically what happened to me with Jagaaaaaan. I knew about it for at least over a year, and I didn't give it a chance until now, and then I speedran that shit in like 2 days. I mean, it was really only 1 day, but on the first day it was really late when I started it. I was looking up stuff for a video, and then I saw a Jagaaaaaan panel. I remembered it existed, so when I was finished with that, I went to go read it finally. That was the first time in a long ass time I went through something that quick. If you ever had those moments where you started an anime in the night, and you finish it by the time the sun comes up, it's basically that kind of feeling. That shit sucked me in. Pause. Now I was going through it like crazy. If you never seen or heard of Jagaaaaaan, to oversimplify it, it's a scene in My Hero. It reminds me of a lot of animes at once. It reminds me of Parasite, of Gleipnir, which is still pretty underrated, and Psycho-Pass too. It takes a lot of good shit from different shows and puts it into one. It feels like a Marvel story, but without the 30 multiverses. I never got into Marvel comics, but that shit looks confusing as fuck. They have 18 different stories of the same character, and at least to me, they just use it to remake a bad story, but it's really heavy on the superhero themes. So it makes sense the MC's a cop. The MC's name is Jagaaaaaan, and he's just a normal neighborhood cop. If somebody's causing problems, he gets sent to deal with it, but it's not the cool shit you think they'll be doing. It's really just going around and dealing with complaints. He has to go around and tell people to stop doing what they're doing if it's causing problems, and he gets put through a lot of bullshit, even though it's his job. So sometimes he gets an urge to be a little trigger happy, but he obviously can't, so he doesn't. So he puts on a fake happy persona and just sucks it all up. Even when he's with his coworkers or inside his house, he has to fake being happy. His life is pretty linear. It's not hard to see where it's going. Marrying his girlfriend, having kids, and growing old working his cop job. Some people would be cool with that, but knowing how his life is gonna be till the day he dies is eating him up daily. He's doing pretty good, honestly. He's the first MC I've seen in a long time without an underdog story. He didn't tell his boss to pay off his dad debt to the mafia, or get outcasted by his village or something. He's just a guy with a normal job. A story where it's the opposite would be cool. The MC starts off really privileged, and then it goes downhill from there. But even though Jagaaaaaan doesn't have a bad life, he still feels pretty empty, cause it's so predictable. To most people it would be, knowing where you're gonna be at in a few years, that accurately. But he just sucks it up, and shoots people in his head to relieve some stress. But after that we cut to a different part of the city, and it starts raining frogs all over. Probably not that important, but I thought I should mention it. Probably a JoJo Easter egg or something. But then a day goes by, and Jagaaaan's in the same routine, dealing with complaints in the neighborhood. And he ends up chasing a guy onto a train. When he gets on, he sees an owl. Another small detail. Probably an Easter egg to, Tokyo Ghoul, I don't fucking know. But then across the train car, there's a guy yelling at somebody for fucking up at their company. It's Jagaaaaan's job to deal with that kind of stuff, so he tries telling the guy to not make a scene. But since he has to be nice and shit no matter what, the guy starts pressing both of them and yelling at everybody. And then he turns into a Junji Ito monster looking thing and cuts up the guy he was yelling at. It escalates really quickly, and Jagaaaaaan tries to kill the guy, but he cuts off his fingers and forces his gun out of his hand. But he shoots a big ass energy beam before he could get killed, and the guy implodes. His hand turned into a gun where he got cut. It looks pretty cool, but nasty to think about. After he killed the guy, the owl from earlier shows up. A frog comes out the guy's body and it goes to go eat it. I don't know if it's just the guy who translated, but the owl curses a fuck ton. And I mean, I can't really say shit cause I curse a lot too, but unironically he curses every other syllable. Most animes won't go past saying damn or bastard, and that's after getting their arm blown off. The innocent companion look threw me off, but they made the owl brutal as fuck. While he's tearing up that frog from earlier, he's cursing the fuck out of it just casually. It's not that important, but I thought it was funny, so I wanted to mention it. But the owl's name is Doku. He's basically the quest guide for the story. He runs the details on everything that's going on, and why Jagaaaaaan got his power. The frogs are called frenzied frogs, and they look for humans that have a strong desire to use as a host. They use it to fuse with the human and turn into whatever fucked up creature. So Jagaaaaan's mission is to hunt all of them down and have Doku eat them. So he lays out the end goal for the manga, but he wasn't really fucking with it, so he went back home early. He plays it over in his head to understand what happened on the train. He even tries talking to his hand like it's Mickey from Parasite, like he's in a manga or something. I didn't mean to, but I did some foreshadowing shit with the underdog stuff I was talking about earlier, cause the frog ends up jumping into his girlfriend and she turns into a scorpion lady thing. When somebody turns, they turn into a full-on monster, so she attacks him and it forces him to kill her. Whenever Jagaaaaaan kills a fractured, Doku gets an alert, so he shows up a little bit later. He was gonna tell Jagaaaaaan before he left, but he's a fractured human too, but he's not fully turned. But if he leaves it unchecked, he'll turn all the way and he can't go back. So the way to keep it in check is to take a hit. He gets some kind of drug when he kills a fractured. And Daku also forgot to mention it, but after he kills all of them, he has to kill himself, since he's technically one too, but he can revive himself for anybody he wants after it's done, and he wants to revive his girlfriend, so that seals the deal on their partnership, and the rest is history. I won't go further than that, but that's a pretty good summary of the intro. I assume some people watching this don't read it, and I think it'll be way better going in knowing nothing at all. Like when you're trying to put a friend onto a good show, you don't say more than you need to get them interested, but it has a whole package. The art's really good, it has good characters and character dynamics, it's not lacking in anything. There's people that are heavy into justice, people that are evil but not really, I'll get into that, and people that couldn't care less about being either. And it's not a one and done type of thing. They always swap it up with how they present it, so it fucks with you. From the way they show it, there could be a quote unquote bad guy in that one situation, but really all of them are in a gray area. Just from getting a little bit more info, the whole dynamics could be flipped, or by seeing it in the opposite perspective. Even though the fights and characters are crazy as fuck, it doesn't detach it from having realism, and they never highlight it, but they really make sure the powers fit the characters. Their powers are literally their desire, so it makes sense, but you never really think about it. If you're looking at it from the base level, it's just a cool design, but the more you learn about them and look into it, they really made a custom fit to the character. There is way more to it than what I mentioned with the summary. It fits into the new manga trend, with not having the MC hyper focus on being good, and just more about being selfish, and they challenged that idea multiple times later on. In part 2 of Chainsaw Man, when Denji came back, he had two options. He could save a group of old people or one young person, but he picks neither and saves the cat instead. It's just a lot more fun seeing a selfish character, even if what they chose would be the wrong one to a lot of people. Jagaaaaaan second guesses himself a lot, so he looks kinda indecisive, but it works a lot better than you would think. Having a death set resolve is pretty cool, but having a character be indecisive and be just as cool is way harder in my opinion. The ending felt kinda forced and out of nowhere, but everything building up to it was still really good, so it didn't really kill the story for me. Minus the ending, it's the best superhero story I've seen in a long ass time. If you enjoyed, go watch some other shit about anime. That's all I have to say though. Peace.